Hi everyone, it's Laura Volpes, and in today's video I'm going to share with you 5 different ways in which you can create backgrounds for your cards, as well as 5 different card examples. This video is part of a collaboration with Justine Hovey, so once you're done watching my video, make sure to go over to her channel and check out her inspiration too. I will have a link in the description box down below. If you do enjoy this video, don't forget to let me know by giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe for more inspiration from me. And now let's get started. For my first card and background, I used one of my favorite techniques ever, but with a little bit of a twist. I used the ink smooshing techniques with Distress Oxides and Distress Micro Glaze, and I'll show you the products that you will need if you want to use this technique. First of all, you need your Distress Oxides as well as your Distress Micro Glaze. This is used to make your Distress inks and oxides permanent, but with this technique it adds an extra touch to your cards. You will see it later on. You will need this type of cardstock. This is Alcohol Ink Cardstock by Ranger. It is not Yupo Paper, it's a different type of surface, and it will be listed and linked in the description box down below, along with all the supplies that I'll be using today. I used a distress sprayer, and then instead of doing my ink smooshing directly onto my glass mat, I took out my Altenew Stamping Mat, because on mats like this, Distress Oxides bead up a little more and you get more texture when you do the ink smooshing technique. If you don't know this technique, all you have to do is to press your ink pads on your work surface, activate them with water, and then bring your paper onto the inks, and you will create these fun patterns with a lot of texture and variation. If you want to add multiple layers, make sure to dry each layer in between, otherwise your colors will mix up, and you can go ahead and add as many layers as you like. For this card, I started with Ground Espresso Distress Oxide, I then used Dye Distress Oxide, and the last color that I'm going to use is Vintage Photo. As you can see, the colors go down rather vibrant, but as they dry, they become more and more dull. You can see the difference between the Vintage Photo, which is nice and vibrant while it's wet, and the dry inks that are more desaturated that I have on the background of this panel. The panel, by the way, already measures 4¼ by 5½ inches. These are pre-cut for you. I also added a few droplets with a paintbrush because why not? And then I am ready to perform my magic using a blending tool and Distress Micro Glaze. I picked up just a little bit of microglaze using my domed ink blender by scrapbook.com, and then I'm going to blend it on my panel. And you can see here how much difference it makes. It brings back all those colors and all that texture, and this does look different than if you would use the same technique directly on watercolor cardstock. You have to try it because it's really fun. Next, I prepared the rest of the elements that I needed for my card. I used the Boba tea stamp set by Mama Elephant, which is absolutely adorable. I then used the scalloped rectangle in the Blueprints 27 Die-namics by My Favorite Things to cut my ink smooshed background. I created 3 focal panels using the Heavy Doodle stitched circle dies, and I cut some ivory cardstock, and you can see I also stamped my sentiment on one of those circles. And then for my card base I have an A2 stitched rectangle that I die cut out of some brown cardstock using dies by Lone Fawn. I can go ahead at this point and assemble my card, and by the way, for all the images today I did coloring with my Illustrator markers, and for the stamping I used Premium Hybrid Black Ink by scrapbook.com. I decided to skip the card making process and just show you how I put together the cards, because otherwise the video will be too long. You can obviously change these designs and even change the colors of the backgrounds and the themes of your cards. The whole point today was to show you some easy ways to create really beautiful backgrounds on your cards. I raised my monkeys on some foam squares by scrapbook.com, and I'm also using a glitter brush pen, also by scrapbook.com, to add a little bit of bling to the card, because there's never too much glitter, right? Here is the finished card for you, and I think it's absolutely adorable and so fun with that ink smooshed background. On my second card, I created a background using alcohol inks, and I also used a couple of extra techniques to spice up the background itself. This time I am working on Yupo paper. This is also by Ranger, and I have the 5 by 7 inches sheets that I'm going to cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I have my alcohol inks, also by Ranger. I like to keep them in this metal tin. It keeps them nice and tidy. And then to create the background, I'm just going to drop the inks sort of on the diagonal line that goes from the bottom right towards the top left corner of my card base. I used turquoise and pistachio at this stage, and then I added some blending solution that will help me move the inks. Also, for the blending solution, I stuck to this central portion, or central diagonal I should say, of my card front, because I wanted my background to sort of follow that line. To create a little bit of depth in this background, I also brought in some Denim Alcohol Ink. It's a bit of a darker blue, and I'm using this marker spritzer to move my inks around. And always remember to work in a well-ventilated areas when you're playing around with your alcohol inks. At this point, I put the background aside to dry, and when it's not completely dry, what you can do is you can add foil to it. I chose this beautiful Prism foil by Spellbinders, and all you have to do is to rub your foil on your alcohol ink background, and in the areas where the alcohol inks are not completely dry, they will still be a little bit sticky, and that's where your foil will be picked up and you can add that nice and shimmery detail to your background. So at this point we already have a beautiful background for our card, but I wanted to show you one extra step you could use to add even more interest to it. I'm using a background stamp by MFT and alcohol lift ink. This will reactivate the inks that I have in the areas where I stamped the images, obviously, and then I can go ahead and use a microfiber cloth to rub off the activated alcohol ink and reveal the stamped impression, which I think added a very nice detail to the background. I then used the Otterly Fantastic Stamp Set by Avery L and the Lawn Fawn Large Stitched Rectangle Stackables dies just to give that extra stitched detail to my background. I heat embossed the sentiment from the same stamp set with some white embossing powder over black cardstock. I cut it into a thin banner and then I adhered everything to my card front. I decided to embellish the card further using some confetti by Studio Katia, which I am gluing down using an embellishment wand. And here is my second card done. It was really quick to make, but I think it turned out super cute. The background for my third card probably took 10 seconds to make. I'm going to use Distress Oxide sprays over a stencil, and I have some watercolor cardstock here on my desk. This is by Spectrum Noir. I have the On My Heart stencil by Hefty Doodle laid down on my watercolor cardstock, and then I'm going to spritz my Distress Oxide sprays like maybe twice or 3 times on my background, remove the stencil, and the background is ready. I just need to wait for it to dry. Also for this card, I kept the design rather simple. I used the Sweet Friends stamp set by Lawn Fawn, again colored it with my Illustrator markers. I created a focal point using the Stitched Circles dies by Hefty Doodle and I stamped the sentiment directly there. I die cut my background with the Stitched Rectangle die again by Lawn Fawn, again just to add that nice stitched detail all around, and then I adhered my ice creams on the card front using some foam squares. Again, I'm using scrapbook.com foam squares. These are really handy to use. They come in this nice sheet, and if you don't press them too hard, you still have some time to move things around on your card front while you're figuring out the position that you want. I added a little bit of glitter using some crystal stickles on the yellow part of the ice cream, and here is my card done. I absolutely love that background, so fun and whimsical and with a lot of texture given by the Distress Oxide spray. For my third card, I used a technique that I shared on my blog, I think last month, and that I thought I wanted to also share on video because it's really quick and super fun. I'm using Distress crayons, and this is the set one, which has all my favorite colors of Distress inks pretty much, so it was just perfect. I'm starting again from some watercolor cardstock by Spectrum Noir. This is nice and bright white, so I love using it. And all I'm doing is I am scribbling my crayons on the background, following rainbow order and in a diagonal line. I started from Twisted Citron and then I moved on to Peacock Feathers, followed by Mermaid Lagoon, Picked Raspberry, Spiced Marmalade and then Mustard Seed. And then once I was done adding my crayons to the background, I spritzed the cardstock with some clean water from a distress sprayer, and I'm using a flat brush to just lightly brush over those stripes. I want to blend out the crayons, but I still want to keep the texture, so I'm not going to work on it too much. As you can see, this is another very quick background to create, but it's a lot of fun because of the texture and because with the rainbow you can never go wrong. I also wanted to add a little bit of shimmer here, so I took some Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl, I diluted them with water and then I created some little droplets with a paintbrush. For my card, I decided to use the Magical Friends stamp set by MFT, which incredibly was not sold out on Ellen Hudson, so I have a link for it in the description box down below. I created some borders with these puffy cloud border dies by Lawn Fawn, and I used some white cardstock as well as some pearlescent vellum. I'm going to show it to you in a second. And I also again used the A2 sized rectangle in the large stitched rectangle Stackables dies by Lawn Fawn to cut my background and the cloud borders. The last product that I showed there was the vellum by Lawn Fawn. You can see that I layered my white cardstock and vellum cloud borders, and I'm adhering everything to the background using some foam tape. This is Scotch 3M foam tape. I added a little bit of glitter to the dragon using a glitter brush pen, and here is my fourth card done. So fun and quick to make, and I love how that rainbow background turned out. For my fifth card, I used a technique that I feature quite often, I feel, on my cards, and that is creating a DIY pattern paper effect using stamps from your stamp sets. I generally use smaller images for this, and today I decided to feature the Love Letters stamp set by Lawn Fawn. This is another of those products that I've had in my stash for a while, and I haven't used as much as I think I should have because it's so cute and it deserves more love. I started from a pre-cut Nina Solar white card front. These are also available at scrapbook.com and they're quite convenient because they are already pre-cut for you to the standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm using Premium Hybrid Black Ink by scrapbook.com. This is both waterproof and alcohol ink proof, so you can use it with any coloring medium you like. I mounted some of the images in this set on an acrylic block and I'm stamping them on my background, making sure to rotate my acrylic block so that I get a random pattern. You could leave your background like this or even use colored ink to stamp your images rather than coloring like I did. But if you guys have been around for a while, you do know that I love coloring, so I decided to color these images as well using my Illustrator markers by Spectrum Noir, which, in case you don't know them, are alcohol-based markers. To finish off this card, I used more images from the Love Letters stamp set by Lawn Fawn, which I colored again with Illustrator markers. I used the Lacy Heart Stackables dies by Lawn Fawn to create a focal panel to put my images on and separate them a little bit from the background, and I used those dies to cut some more pearlescent vellum by Lawn Fawn. I used this over Christmas and then I kind of forgot about it, and I don't know why because it's really pretty. Again, those stitched rectangles dies were used to create a stitched border around my card base, and then I simply used some tape to adhere everything to the background. Here is the final result. I really love how this turned out. I actually have to say that I'm very happy with all the cards that I'm sharing today. It would be hard for me to pick a favorite, but definitely let me know which one is your favorite. And also let me know which is your favorite techniques to create backgrounds. Maybe I'll find out something new for my crafting, and I also am interested in knowing what you guys actually enjoy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a collaboration with Justine Hovey, so make sure to check out her video. There will be a link in the description box down below and see what her 5 ways to create card backgrounds are. I cannot wait to watch that video myself. I'm sure I'll be very inspired. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video showing 5 different ways to create quick yet beautiful backgrounds for your cards. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel for more card making and paper crafting inspiration. And as always, thank you all so much for stopping by. Stay safe and healthy and have a great day.